Today we are going to take a look at this primary document called the Crusades, or its primary source. It's the speech that Pope Urban II gave to a group of people in basically calling the start to what has now been called the Crusades. And so what we're going to do is take a look at, as we go through this text, it is pretty dense or tough text. Primary source, so this means that these are the words that were spoken versus a secondary source, which is giving information about what happened. So, okay, let's take a look. Pope Urban II's speech, 1095. If you look at your timeline, you will notice that 1095 is right at the beginning of when the Crusades were starting. So on this day, November 27th, 1095, a great crowd of laymen and clergy. So the laymen are kind of your common people, your common folk, if you will. It's the community, the people who are there. And the clergy are people who work for the church. And remember, at this time in history, the church is very central to their living. It's everything from how they have celebrations to how people, they'll do anything that the church says, basically, because the church is the way of life. They gathered in an open field to hear him speak. And that's basically what I need for you to picture is this group of people standing there listening to the Pope, who was associated with the church and therefore very respected, speak. We have this word bank right here. And throughout the text, I can see just by looking at these words, a lot of these words are underlined and bolded. So what I'm going to do is use a strategy to go through, so I don't have to go back and forth and back and forth. I am going to go to all of these bolded, underlined words, and I am going to define them using some of the language that's above. So if I look at the word confines here, I see that that's the boundary or border. So I'm going to put boundary here. If I see this is accursed, it means that it's under a curse or it's doomed. I like that word, doomed. Here I see depopulated, which means to remove or reduce the population. So I'm going to put reduce population. Remission means pardon or forgiveness. I just spelled that correctly. There's no either. Liberated, going back up to the top, means to be set free. Not feed, freed. To cease is to stop. Implore is to beg. Debasement is to decrease in value. Okay, so I went ahead and defined some of these words. So as I read it, I'll be able to fill in some of the holes based on the information that I have and that I know. As we go, just like when we did the lottery, we'll be filling out over here to the side what each of the different paragraphs mean so that we can read this in terms that are going to be easier for us to understand. This is very wordy and it is tough text. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'll read through. I may pause here or there, but I'm going to try to just read it and then we'll break it down. From the boundary of Jerusalem, which remember this is the holy city, okay, that's the holy city for Jewish religion, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. From the boundary of Jerusalem in the city of Constantinople, a horrible tale has gone forth and very frequently has been brought to our ears, namely that a race from the kingdom of the Persians, an accursed race, a race utterly alienated from God, has invaded the lands of those Christians and has depopulated them by the sword, pillage, and fire. It has led away part of the captives into its own country. As we look at this, there's a lot of stuff happening in here, but really not much. So basically what we know is we're within the boundaries or the borders of Jerusalem is where we're located, okay? A horrible tale. If you're telling a tale of some kind, what is that? Right, that's a story. So they're telling stories. How often are they telling stories? Very frequently. So stories are being told frequently. namely that a race from the kingdom of the Persians, an accursed or doomed race, a race utterly alienated from God. To be alienated means to be separated. And so this is a race or a group of people who are separated from God, who don't believe in God. Has invaded the lands of those Christians. So again, we have the land of the Christians is Jerusalem. Okay. Lands of, sorry. And has depopulated them. They've reduced the population, so they've been killing them with swords, through pillaging, fire, and has led away part of the captives. So what is this saying right now? What city is in trouble, basically? He's saying that Jerusalem is held captive by basically non-believers, we'll go with, as he calls them, those who are alienated from God, those who don't have God in their lives. So he's saying, hey, our holy city is currently being inhabited by people who don't even believe in this. So that's where he's starting. Oh, and they're killing our people. So that's what he's saying to start with. They're held captive by non-believers. The city's being held captive by non-believers, and they're killing everybody living. All who die by way, whether by land or sea or in battle against the pagans. Oh, I didn't do pagans. Pagan is it's basically a non-believer. So they don't believe in God. Shall have immediate remission of sins or forgiveness. So all who die, so whether you're by land or sea or battle. So when we go land, sea, or battle, that means that we're fighting some kind. If we're fighting these non-believers, so all who die while fighting these non-believers will have immediate forgiveness of their sins. Okay? So this would be, if you die fighting, equals immediate forgiveness. Okay, so if you go and fight these crusades with us and you die, you get immediate forgiveness for any sins that you have had in your life, no matter what they are. Remember to pause at any point if this is going too quickly for you, okay? You usually do that. Number 3, let those who for a long time have been robbers now become knights. Let those who have been fighting against their brothers and relatives now fight in a proper way against the barbarians. Let those who have been serving as mercenaries for small pay now obtain the eternal reward. So as a reader, I'm noticing there's repetitions. We have let those who once did this, now do this. Let those who once did this, now do this. Let those who have once done this, now do this. So he's taking people and those who for a long time, and then the part that follows are generally negative. So if you were robbing people, don't rob people anymore. Become a knight. Hey, if you were fighting against your brothers and relatives before, don't do that. Let's fight properly against the barbarians. And the barbarians are those non-believers over there. And those of you who've been mercenaries, you work for the church, but you don't get paid a lot, you know what? How about we get really paid with eternal reward? And think of what in Christianity would be considered the eternal reward. Okay, so he's saying here that it really doesn't matter what you did. If you were robbing people, come be a knight. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter your background or your history. Come fight. So I don't care if you were robbing people, you can fight this war. I don't care if you were harming people before, you can come fight this with us. So it doesn't matter what you were doing, you can come fight. As we keep going these next sections, you might want to try one on your own and then watch me do it and then see how you did with that text, because it is tough. This royal city, therefore, again, anytime we're talking about a city or a she or anything like that, we're going back to Jerusalem again. Okay, I don't know why they can't just say Jerusalem over. This royal city, therefore, situated at the center of the world, is now held captive by his enemies and is in subjection to those who do not know God, to the worship of the heathens. I do love that word, heathens. His is capitalized. Anytime in Christianity they refer to God with his, he, him, they will capitalize that first letter. She seeks. She pronouns are often used with geographical locations, and therefore she is also referring to Jerusalem. Okay? She seeks, therefore, and desires to be liberated and does not cease to implore you to come to her aid. So what are we saying here? We have this royal city. So Jerusalem, which is the center of our world, is now being held captive by God's enemies. Remember, God's enemies are, again, these non-believer pagans, okay? And is in subjection to those who do not know God, to the worship of the heathen. So basically, non-believers have taken over Jerusalem. She, Jerusalem, wants to be liberated or freed and does not stop begging you to come to her aid. So basically, it's saying that Jerusalem, this is personifying Jerusalem, Jerusalem is begging for help. She wants to be freed from the heathens. All right? So Jerusalem is the she, Jerusalem is the royal city, Jerusalem is begging us to help free her. Under Jesus Christ, our leader, so you notice here leader also because it's referring to Jesus Christ, may you struggle for your Jerusalem. In Christian battle line, most invincible line, struggle that you may assail and drive out the Turks, and may you deem it a beautiful thing to die for Christ in that city in which he died for us. So, going to be a beautiful thing to die for Christ in that city, and remember that city is Jerusalem, for which he died for us. So remember, this is a holy city for three different religions, and for Christians, they believe that this is where Christ died and was resurrected. And so he's saying, how great would it be, what a beautiful thing for you to die for Christ, just like he died for us. Okay, so he's kind of like throwing that out there like, hey guys, he died for us, we should be dying for him too. And that's part of his argument here. So, and it's a Christian battle to assail, to assault, to attack vigorously. So we are going to go attack them and drive them out of our holy city, or we're going to die trying. So we're going to attack the Turks at this point, or die trying, just like Christ died. Number 6, consider, think about, therefore that the Almighty, again, this right here is pulling to God or Jesus, has provided you perhaps for this purpose, that through you he may restore Jerusalem from such debasement. Ponder, I beg you, how full of joy and delight our hearts will be when we shall see the holy city restored with your little help. Holy city, again, we're talking about the location of, that's right, you guessed it, Jerusalem. All right, so the Almighty, so consider, so think that maybe God provided you, created you. He created you perhaps just for this purpose, the Crusades. So he's saying, hey, think about this, like maybe God made you as a human, because they believe that God creates everything, that God made you so you could fight in these crusades so that we could restore Jerusalem. We could get it back. Like you were created so that you can help save this holy city that is not what it was right now because these people have taken over. Okay? Our hearts will be full of joy and delight. Okay? So happy once we win. Okay, this is your purpose. Your purpose. Time's almost up. So basically, this whole thing is saying, hey, Jerusalem's being held captive by non-believers. Lots of people are saying that. We are going to die fighting, and if you do die fighting, you're going to get immediate forgiveness for any sins. It doesn't matter what your background was. Come and fight with us. Jerusalem is begging for our help. We're going to attack these people who've taken over, or we're going to die trying. And you know what? Maybe it's your purpose to do this, and we'll be happy once we win this battle. Think of how great it's going to feel once we bring Jerusalem back. So, Pope Urban II, Christian